We're live.
Live from the Plutopia News Network, this is the Plutopia Happy Hour. Our guest this evening is Screamish Joy. The not ready for primetime players are here. Scoop Sweeney, that's me. Over on the other side is John Lebkowski and tonight's fearless leader, Susie Sheeler. Lead on, Susie.
Fearless.
Yeah, you are the leader of the pack.
Fearless. Oh, I love that song. Hello, Screamish. How are you?
Hey, y'all. Hi.
I feel like I haven't. I feel like I haven't spoken. I feel like we haven't spoken in 45 minutes or so.
37 something.
37. So today we are going to talk to one of the coolest, most intelligent, talented people I know and have known since I was about 8 years old. We've been friends for a long, long time. And in fact, this is one of her creations. I've used it for a long time. This is one of her art creations. She's quite creative. She's a creator and a communicator who lived in Austin and Georgetown, and now is out where Mr. Scoop Sweeney is in the Bastrop area, about to get drenched. So what we were going to talk about a little bit today is Texas. Greg Abbott, for some unknown reason, expanded medical marijuana in the state. I mean, I'm still trying to figure out what's going on there because this is unexpected. It was House Bill 1535, the Compassionate Use Program, which had already existed, but only for people with certain kinds of epilepsy, I think, right? And so then when he did this, it really. So who did this open up to when he signed the bill? Now who's allowed to use it and not use it? How is it actually? What is the process?
There's a couple of things that happened with the bill, and I want to start off by saying, like, I'm not an expert of policy, and so if I misstate myself, please feel free to fact check me. But my understanding is with the bill, it did a couple of things. It increased the amount of THC that was actually allowed. The THC was, I believe, 0.5%, and they increased that to 1%. So now the medication that they produce is able, and they've actually, I know that they've done actually some, they have, what I receive is I just got qualified on the actual program, and I receive a 1-to-1 ratio, which is 1 CBD to 1 THC, and so I have that as a sublingual, and I take that. And so in Texas, there are no, all of the medicine that is provided through the Compassionate Program is either a lozenge or a sublingual oil.
So, and how much do you take, and what was the reason?
Yeah, I think so. You asked her to back up just a bit. You asked, who else it opened up to, and it was a very limited group of patients that had kind of a very specific. I think there were multiple types of epilepsy, but they were very specific types of epilepsy that caused seizures and did certain things. And so they expanded both the epilepsy program, but they also expanded to cancer, to certain types of pain patients. In September, they will open up to PTSD and some other conditions, but they really broadly expanded the number of conditions that were available. It's still very limited. It's still, I would like to say it's not a list you really want to be able to get on, it's still a very limited list. There's a lot of people who would benefit from medical marijuana that are still not able to access it. But
what if you have an ingrown toenail? Will that work?
Only if it's neuropathic.
It may be.
It may be. If it's hitting a nerve, it's possible.
Back when I still lived in my wife and I lived in the Bay Area, and she was diagnosed with MS, and it's fairly advanced, and it's the primary progressive type that doesn't go away. So she was able to get, with no problem, a medical marijuana card, and just made her a happy camper because it really helps people with MS. And
Absolutely.
when we decided to move out here, we knew that there wasn't going to be a medical marijuana thing, but we figured, well, they're going to catch up with the rest of the world. Texas is always trying to say we're number one. Well, they're number last as far as compassionate use. The program is just ridiculous. 1%. I mean, that's nothing. Like,
And
Yeah, what the,
the people, I mean, honestly, it's hard to talk about it and be like, okay, it's only opened up this much and it's only 1%, because you have to consider how hard people fought to get from that 0.5% to 1%. Like, Texas has made it so difficult. And it's like, I don't want to discredit the amount of work that went in to passing this bill. It was significant, and, but it's baffling. I agree with you. It is baffling as to why Texas is, I mean, I guess they've chosen their profit route, whatever. And it's not in, it's not to the benefit of
basically run by the religious right, who don't want you to be drinking or smoking or taking marijuana, anything.
I think they're part of it. I think they are a big part of it, but I think that the police system in Texas, I mean, there's a lot of small town sheriffs that have really fought against legalization of marijuana because they frankly make money off of it, and then there's also, from a pharmaceutical perspective, there's a lot of pharmaceutical backing that goes against the legalization. And so I think it's a combination. We have a trifecta, sort of like a three-headed monster that keeps us just stuck. And the citizenship wants it.
There's the black market industry for marijuana, people who sell it where it's illegal. And this could put a lot of them out of business. So I'm sure that they are not.
it's not going to put my guy out of business.
Well, if they're smart, they'll get into, the legal marijuana business, the cannabis industry.
I mean, honestly, places like Texas that maintain illegal marijuana are really just supporting cartels that are super hurting our country big time. And the longer that we continue to make it illegal, the more that we make it, beneficial to, black market and underground groups to come in, and they do very violent things. And there's a lot happening in California with cartels coming in and taking over grow operations. And I mean, there was just a very recent violent situation that occurred with that. And so I think it's something we're going to see more of. In Texas is going to, they will only be able to hold out for so long. I mean, it sucks that we're on a 2-year cycle with our legislation. And so every time we have to wait, but hopefully they'll continue to, hopefully somewhere, but there will, hopefully, I don't know, somebody will like become governor or become, we'll get leadership that will actually lead us into the future, and not fight this battle that is ridiculous. 38 states have already legalized it on some form or fashion.
Well, I have found that marijuana is definitely a gateway drug. It leads you directly to Boone's Farm Strawberry Hill wine.
Yeah, and Doritos, definitely Doritos.
I would counter that is not in fact true. I do not. But okay, so why? What prompted you to get on the list? I mean, were you a user before and you knew it worked for you, or are you just trying this out to see what the compassionate care is? It or do you have?
So cannabis for me has been integral to my life. And I've been a chronic user of cannabis. I've been an honest user of cannabis for many, many years. I have a very complicated medical history. And it is something, I was born with a lot of congenital health issues. And, I had kind of extra organs and things that didn't really work right. And so from a very, almost from birth, I had a lot of surgeries. And at some point in my life, I had a medical trauma event. And that happened really, at a young age, when I was around 10 years old. And so I started smoking cannabis when I was about 12. And I sought it out. I was very proactive about wanting to find it. And I can't tell you why that is. I knew about, I was a very intelligent child. I read a lot. I read above my age at a significant level. And I read about cannabis. I understood marijuana. I read about Jack Herer. I read about the legality. I understood all of that. And then I went and sought it out. I went and found a friend who had an older brother. And, I just, and almost instantly became a chronic user. I did use heavier drugs in my youth. I was very self-medicating. I, didn't understand that I had had a trauma event. And so I did that. But, I have a story that I like to tell about cannabis use. When I was 18 or 19 years old, I had really pushed myself to the edge of my drug use. I was pretty much on the edge of my life. And my parents were trying to help me recover. And so they sent me to Hazelden, which is one of the oldest recovery centers in the country. And it's a very, very fine recovery center. And I remember being picked up. It's in Minneapolis, or kind of outside of Minneapolis in Minnesota. And I remember being picked up at the airport by this kind woman who was driving me to treatment. And she was talking to me about my drug use. And I was saying, yeah, I need to quit use. I was using methamphetamines and cocaine and just kind of whatever. I didn't really care. I was just using drugs. I was really just trying to self-medicate. And I said, yeah, I really need to stop all that. It's hurting me really bad. And she said, what about marijuana? I know you smoke a lot of marijuana. And I go, yeah, I'm not going to stop doing that. And she goes, well, then you're not going to be able to commit to your program. And I said, I'm sorry, ma'am, but I will be 98 years old and I will be sitting on my front porch smoking marijuana. Like, I don't, you're right. These other drugs are terrible, but you're not going to make me give up my medication. So from a very early age, I understood that.
And that's one of the things I think would be very helpful for people to stop drinking. I think marijuana is a fantastic idea. And they've got some prisons
absolutely.
Overseas where they just they let their prisoners imbibe the marijuana. I don't know if that's the correct term. I think imbibe is drinking, but
I use the word imbibe all the time, though, for all sorts of consumption. Yeah, I think
Great.
It's okay.
Then I won't. I would. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Hey, you're welcome.
Approval.
And they're all very happy, and the violence is considerably lower than it is in just any of our jails, honestly. Okay, so you go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say that I will quit drinking wine if they legalize marijuana. I'll be first in line to turn in my wine card. And
nice.
Mm-hmm. I think that's a fair statement.
In the meantime.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Cheers. In the meantime, cheers.
Well, so you're you said you've been a chronic smoker since about 12 or 13?
Probably 15 when it really became a daily thing. It was I wasn't able to earn money at 12 like I was at 15.
Good call.
But yeah,
by the way,
very early age and for a very long time in my life.
So did you ever try to stop?
Other than those very early treatment experiences that I had where I was, basically just put away and unable to use marijuana. The only other time that I tried to stop was when I was in my late 30s, and I had worked my way into a really corporate job, like a really a serious job. And it was with a publicly traded company. I was very, very rapidly getting promoted and kind of like getting noticed in the organization. And, I thought to myself, God, I'm really in a grown-up situation. I'm full on adulting, and maybe I should quit smoking marijuana. Maybe I should stop. I didn't have any particular reason. It wasn't hurting me or causing any issues. It was just sort of this idea that I was in this, and it was a pretty conservative environment, so I would say like it influenced from that. So I did. I quit. I quit smoking. And for a couple of weeks, everything was fine. I was annoyed with the world, but everything was fine. It was going on. And then I developed a migraine headache, and I had never had a migraine headache before in my life. And I developed 17 migraine headaches in 24 days. They were like debilitating, show stopping. I couldn't go to work. I couldn't do anything. I was like completely, I went to ER so frequently that they knew me by name. I would walk in and they'd be like, Stephanie, you again? Oh my God, and had spinal taps. I had brain scans. I had every possible test that, they could run and insurance would pay for. And ultimately, the results were there's no physical reason for this. And I was sent to a psychiatrist. And the psychiatrist, questioned me about my childhood medical experiences. And I started sharing them. And I shared them in a really casual way because they were just my experiences. And I just knew, that's what they were. I didn't share, I wasn't crying or, I spent so much time with doctors and just being poked and prodded and looked at from the time I was born that I was groomed for that experience. It just, it was a part of my life. And so when I casually mentioned to her that I had woken up in surgery when I was about 10 years old, and seen myself cut open, she stopped me and she really explored that a lot. And that was when I got diagnosed with PTSD. And I had not, I'd basically been self-medicating and I'd lived my entire experience. And so at that time they put me on, I went to EMDR therapy. I went to PTSD therapy and did kind of all the things. They put me on Zoloft, and I gained like 62 pounds in 6 months. Zoloft almost destroyed my life.
Yeah, it's not a very good drug.
No, and it's not even, it's not even made for PTSD. It's like one of those like off-label uses.
Exactly.
And so,
Yeah, it's an SSRI, antidepressant.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so it didn't work. It didn't. And after 6 months of being on Zoloft and, going from a size 6 to a size 14, I started smoking pot again. I didn't know what else. I quit the Zoloft completely. I started doing yoga. I practice mindfulness. Things like that.
I was told once by a friend when I stopped drinking and I went on a diet, and I said, I'm just going to have no sugar. I'm not going to drink, but I am going to continue to smoke. And nobody believed me that I could do that because they thought, oh no, you'll get the munchies and you'll be couch locked and all this kind of stuff. And it just doesn't happen unless that's what you want to happen. You function. Some people function quite well on it.
Yeah, I'm extremely high. As a matter of fact, I'm very low functioning without it. And I like to say I don't think I've been high in 25 or 30 years. I mean, honestly, I don't actually, when we were teenagers, once somebody said to me one time, I went to, Austin had like a cannabis conference a few years ago that was fantastic. I wish we did it annually. It was just fantastic. And I went to that. And I remember somebody speaking about the fact that, when we grew up with cannabis, we were basically just drunk on it all the time. We didn't understand the limits of it. We didn't understand what was in it. We just took whatever we got. It could have been any level of quality of cannabis, and we just smoked the hell out of it. So it was just that is the way it was. As an adult user, I'm extremely mediated in the way that I use cannabis. Yeah, I do use it when I want to. I'm an adult user, and I use it socially if I choose or what have you. But for the most part, I'm 51 years old. I'm not partying. I'm not sitting here like I need to function. It's important to my life that I function, and for me, cannabis allows that. It doesn't inhibit it.
You know, Justin Hall, who has a business called bud.com, which is a marijuana delivery service in the Bay Area. But Justin was on our show once, and he was talking about microdosing, and he was like persistently microdosing with THC. You kind of have to use, I guess, liquid or edibles to get the dosage just
you
right.
would.
But
And that's honestly, that's
he
basically
found that very helpful. You know,
that's basically what the compassionate program's doing. I mean, it's just offering a microdose of THC, and I have been using it to my prescription, and it's a very quality medication. I can tell that it is releasing anxiety for me. It's helping me manage anxiety, and it's anxiety that is absolutely associated with pain, because the pain I'm having is, aside from the debilitation of it, it is very anxiety inducing. It is unbelievably anxiety inducing. And so, it's all interrelated. This is another issue that I have. It's like politicians should not be determining the medical needs for anything, frankly, in my opinion. That should be done by physicians and pharmacists, and hopefully, and some sort of collaborative method. I think it's important. And, I know, from my perspective, it's something that I've had to depend on. And, I talk about having a complicated medical history. I've had over 17 surgeries. I was born with 3 kidneys, and I've had 2 of them removed. So I've only got 1. I was born with 2 bladders. I've had a lot of just very complicated health things, and I'm very protective of the few remaining organs that I have, and pharmaceuticals are not necessarily friendly for that. Pharmaceuticals, if I had taken all of the pain medication that had ever been prescribed to me, I might not be here right now. My body just wouldn't sustain it. And so again, to me, it's very complicated, and it's a conversation that should be between me and my doctor, and nobody else should be involved in that. Nobody should care about that. And on a social level, I 100% support adults using cannabis. If we have legal alcohol, there's literally zero logical reason that we should not have legal cannabis. I mean, it makes no sense whatsoever.
But there are logical reasons that don't have to do with that direct correlation. And I'm just playing devil's advocate, because you know how I feel about this. But for example, like you mentioned, big pharma, right? We got to the legislature. We got to satisfy big pharma. We got to satisfy big oil. Because
can we clarify though? Can we not call those logical reasons and call those evil reasons? There are plenty of evil reasons why we don't have cannabis. Sure.
But it's logical for people, for certain people who have money tied up in those things. What we're not recognizing is the opportunities that it could present for the country. I think Texas is really short-sighted on this.
Texas, so there's, I look at it as sort of a striation. From my perspective as an individual, obviously the medical part really matters to me. I care about that a lot. But, and then we look at the social part, and we talk, a lot of times people talk about taxes. You can go to Marijuana Policy Project, or if you just do a simple search on marijuana tax revenue by state, one of the first links that will come up will list all of the projected revenue for a state. So it's got all 50 states, and it has actual revenue and projected revenue. So for, obviously Texas is illegal, but for somebody like California, they just got over $1 billion, in tax revenue in 2019 or whatever. And so tax revenue is a lot, right? But then, we talk about, there's like jobs and industry, right? Like actually building the jobs and industry that relate to cannabis and all of the revenue that comes from that I'm an abundance theory believer. I don't think that the pharmaceutical companies are just going to go out of business, or that the oil companies are going to just totally disappear, at least in my lifetime,
Right.
And so there's room for cannabis in Texas, right? There's room for it. And so we could, have a job industry and create a lot of, just individual wealth for people. And then there's also brands and intellectual capital and research and development. And when Texas drags their heels on legalizing marijuana, they are dragging their heels on money we can't even project. We don't even know what we lose out on because Willie Nelson launched his brand in California instead of Texas, or any number of patents that have been filed out of Colorado or California. Or we look at Canada, that is fully legalized at a federal level for their entire country, and they are like rocking it when it comes to R&D and growing the cannabis industry. So there's so much, right now I just posted a article that was talking about Clarence Thomas had written a paper basically, talking about the fact that the cannabis laws no longer make sense at a federal level, because so many states have chosen to legalize it or go that route. And because cannabis is still federally illegal, it really inhibits the banking process, because banks will not transact anything. Most cannabis companies basically have to transact in cash, which is really challenging when you're talking about billions and billions of dollars of revenue and transactions. And so when we're to a point where me and Clarence Thomas are in agreement on literally anything on the face of the earth, okay? I think we're to the point that we just need to just stop. It's just stupid. And we just need to move on so that we can deal with things and people can live their lives. We are Texas. We're supposed to be this maverick state, but we've got these nanny leaders at the top of our state, like holding the reins going, no, we can't do this. We can't let these, and it's like, what? Come on.
You can't go to the bathroom.
Yeah,
not allowed to
They've just started the legislature's special session for Governor Abbott and all of his demands. And there's
the first
a lot of
session.
whining and weeping about, oh, we don't have the money to spend. We don't have enough money. We don't have enough money. Except for their pet projects, they've got plenty of money.
Right.
But when you look at the money that they've given up by not approaching, the marijuana legislation with anything other than just disdain. You mentioned the fact that they can't use the banking system. Well, what's happened is cryptocurrency has come along. So it's all gone underground. So they shot themselves in the foot. I mean, if they use the banking system, they would have to pay taxes on a certain amount of that money. But when it goes in the cryptocurrency, it's anonymous and it goes wherever it goes. And that's what a lot of those people are doing now.
That's exactly right. I mean, it's a loss. The war on drugs, or at least specifically the war on this drug, is really functionally over. And we are stuck in a time warp in Texas. Like, we really are. And it's painful. It's hurting us. Every citizen in Texas should be furious about this. It's not an issue of I guess the handful of people that want to make this an issue of morality are going to make anything an issue of morality. But anybody who understands just basic functional logic and adults just being able to make adult decisions, cannabis needs to move forward in our state.
Isn't it Mitch McConnell who likens it to heroin?
It is actually still at a federal level classified at the same level as heroin. So when he says that, he's got backing. He's validated in saying that, because it is classified as a Class A drug or
class.
Again, I make shit up.
Class
Whatever it is.
4.
Class 1, Class 4, Class 5.
4.
I don't know.
Class 4. There's
Check
class.
with Susie,
There are
please,
3
for all details. But it's listed as, at the same level as heroin, and it's ridiculous that, that's specifically what Clarence Thomas is speaking to. It's like just adjusting the classification of the drug at a federal level would have a significant, but think of the hypocrisy.
What would it
like,
do? What would it do?
Well, it just adjusting it from to the next level would allow research and development and federal funding for research. That alone, just because it would put it at a level that allows for that, whereas there's no federal funding allowed. So that's just one thing that could happen. Thinking about the hypocrisy of like a lot of counties, a lot of cities, and we need them to do it, and I appreciate it, but it's sort of this thing where we continue to decriminalize it. Like, what does that even mean? Like, we decriminalize marijuana. Like, how is it getting here? Like, what do we do? Like, what does that even mean? It's like, just legalize it. It's here. It's here. You're sitting there.
Yeah,
Like,
I don't know what that means either, other than it's like a ticket. The cops.
I mean, it's good, and don't get me wrong. I'm grateful. I'm grateful that cities and counties are doing that, because it needs to happen. But it just shows the ridiculousness of, like, that it's in our systems, and we recognize that, and we're just fighting a losing battle. It's no matter how you look at it. I think I do not see the logic. Even when we talk about the people that might see the logic, I don't see the logic. I'm just like, no, go do something else, pharma. Go do something else, oil. Like, fight for something else. Like, go fight for, a burning ocean or whatever it is you want that makes you happy. I mean, like, I don't know, like, cannabis should be left alone.
I haven't noticed.
To the people.
Yeah. And the fact is that many of us know exactly how to medicate ourselves in a responsible way. A lot of people do it with alcohol. I wouldn't call that responsible, but I think that marijuana is a very beneficial. I mean, even to people who don't have specific pain, it's an excellent way to get to sleep, to reduce anxiety. This woman, God, I can't remember her name. The woman who just got denied the Olympic shot. Sha'Carri, something like
Sha'Carri Richardson. I'm sorry, Sha'Carri.
Yeah.
No, it's Sha'Carri. It's Sha'Carri. That's proper. Sha'Carri Richardson.
And she got totally busted out. I mean, they said no, not even the relay. And she lives in a place where it's legal, and she qualifies for it. So what do you think is going to happen now with not just things like, the IO, whatever it is, or even I don't know, but people who given this drug, like a kid would be given Vicodin or something, and it would be if they were 15.
I think that there's been a lot of outcry, obviously, with Sha'Carri and getting pulled out of the Olympics based on, and especially for her situation. And I think that's the thing, like, people they look at it's a compassionate issue. It's like she was in grief and she used something to comfort her grief. And then, obviously people don't understand why that particular drug has to be listed in the same classification as, say, a performance enhancing drug. I think that eventually over time, we're going to see changes happen across the board. At an international level, there are changes happening with cannabis as well in other countries. And so I do think we're going to continue to see that, but there's always going to be a faction of, people that just perceive it in the light that they want to see it in a negative light, for whatever reason, and mostly because they're uninformed or, they choose to be ignorant.
The problem with the way Texas handles a lot of businesses is all run by the political connections with the people running those businesses. Like, you can't buy a Tesla from the factory, you had to have an auto dealership because all the auto dealers said, we don't want anybody doing it that way. And of course, a lot of the legislators, some of the more powerful ones, have dealerships. So figure that out. And the alcohol business, having a liquor store, you have to have a special setup. You can't just be independent. You can't just sell it anywhere. Right. And it was all because a certain number of politically connected people said, we don't want to do that. So they give them politicians and they don't do that.
It's really why we need a change in leadership, honestly. Like our leadership is very committed to their positions, and they are committed to those positions despite what their constituents actually want. The polls on cannabis have polled extremely high for legalization for citizens in Texas for quite some time now. And, we can't put it to a vote. Can we just vote on what we want for cannabis? Can we just put it on a ballot and see what the citizens want? Like the fact that I think some ridiculous number of cannabis bills, again, I don't like to make up things, but it was a lot. It was a lot of cannabis, and like three made it, was like 500 and like three made it, there's so much work happening, and they're just stonewalling, literally. And I use that word strongly. They are just stonewalling it.
Use of the word.
Thank you.
Hey, we have a question in the on YouTube from Emily Adams. She says she has a tendency to overdo things. How do you smoke pot? Once a day dosage, or how often?
Oof.
That's interesting. I usually will smoke a small amount in the morning just to stabilize myself, and then I generally will smoke a little bit every 2 to 3 hours throughout the day. And for me, it's just a stabilizing factor. With the new prescription, I'm actually mitigating against that, and I'm like using my prescription in place of when I would have maybe normally smoked, and I'm finding that to be extremely balancing. So I'm going to continue to try to really work with it. I really want to be legal. I don't, it's like it prohibits me from getting proper medical care. It prohibits me from getting proper pain care. There are a lot, I make a choice by doing this, and it definitely jeopardizes. It puts me in jeopardy, to have to do that.
But in Texas, they won't let you take pain medication that is level 2 or 3, unless you have, level 2, I think they will, but level 3, they won't let you smoke marijuana. They'll drug test you specifically for marijuana, as though it's going to somehow enhance the narcotic,
anything,
which
or
it
do
does
anything
not
at all, which it would not ever.
No.
So, I'm honest with my physicians, and because I think you need to be. I mean,
absolutely.
How can they treat you?
I agree.
And it's just, it creates a lot of real challenges. And, I'm like a really super generally like legal person in all the other ways. Okay. I drive really safe, and I don't break laws, and I do good things, and so it's frustrating to kind of feel like you have that stigma. I came out so a few years ago, and this is a kind of an important element of my story, is a few years ago, I was re-traumatized in a very substantial way. I lost my home in the October 2015 floods. And it was an incredibly traumatizing event. It happened late at night. It was what I described as a silent flood. There had been, storms and warnings for days and weeks, and there was horrible, horrible flooding that had happened all around. But that particular night, there was nothing. We got no warnings or anything, and they opened up the dams, and we were getting ready to go to bed, and we looked out our sliding, we looked out our sliding glass door, and we had like 2 feet of water all the way around our house. And, I tell this story. It's like, it was a traumatic moment. We had to get our dogs out. We had to do like all these things. And we opened the door and the entire Colorado River came flooding into my house. And it was like pitch black. And we got our dogs to safety to a higher level. And we put them up in our barn. And we came back to see what we could save. And I'm standing in my house and it is filling up with water. Just as I'm watching it, it's filling up with water. And I'm losing everything in my life. I'm just watching it all just get in. And this is my story. I looked around to see, what can I grab? What can I grab right in this moment? And I saw my bong and my pot, and that's what I grabbed. That's what I grabbed. And I ran, and, our house got 8 feet of water, 6.5 feet of water in it. And it was completely destroyed. We had it demolished, and we lost everything in it. And it was a re-traumatizing experience. And I had to go back through PTSD trauma therapy. And, it really, really, I didn't realize it until, of course, I did. I don't know what I would have done without cannabis. I really don't. It's literally a lifesaver for me. That's literally how I look at it. Like, first my dogs, then my cannabis. Well, I'll make that into a bumper sticker.
I think that's a lot. I mean, I really do think that's a lot of people. I think a lot of law-abiding people, especially those who may not drink, or quite frankly, can't afford insurance and a doctor, or don't want to take Western drugs because they know these other drugs work for them. I just don't understand, I get the whole, we're the white Republican men and we have to control women's bodies, but now you're trying to control men's bodies too. And it seems like it would be offensive to those men. So I don't know. It seems like a controlling thing.
And also, I think don't underestimate, how racism affects all this as well. And the
absolutely.
systems that we have, right? I mean, that is also a big part of
100%.
Texas is, what they won't say, but absolutely can't get away from. And so, I mean, it's, it's insidious. It's really insidious. And like I said, every citizen should take this as an affront. The fact that we didn't get more legislative stuff passed in this last session is, at this point, it's just gotten stupid. And like I said, there's some people out there that are, I am not one of them. God, I am not one of the people working tirelessly. There are people out there working tirelessly to make this happen for our state. And, again, the Marijuana Policy Project is just a good place to kind of keep up on what's happening kind of at a federal level, but it kind of covers what's going on in all the states. And then, there's several local Texas groups that are involved. And I just urge people to pay attention, get involved, don't.
Yeah, we were talking about even bigger things that could, make money besides the jobs it could create and but the market. I mean, it's not just like the people who are tending the flowers and selling it at the dispensaries. I mean, this is marketing that could be happening. Tiffany's could come out with a special, grinder and
I mean, look at Bic just ran an ad with Martha Stewart and Snoop Dogg. I mean, it is so mainstream, and the ad is great. Martha Stewart's like, it's for candles, and Snoop Dogg's like, and other things too.
And other things. I saw that.
Yes. It's so mainstream. It's why, it's why I just use words like evil and insidious, because at this point, the fight against it is the wrong fight. I love that Olympic logo. That's great. It's the wrong fight. It's the wrong fight. It needs to be moved. We need to move on. We're wasting time and money, and we're just hurting people for literally no reason, and just, you go into a dispensary and Oregon or Washington or, and it's a magical experience. Like the bud tenders are they're like saints. They're like spiritual people. And they know everything, and they're beautiful, and they know they're helping people. I mean, they do. They fund it. And the first time I ever went into a dispensary, I started crying. I stood there in Colorado in a dispensary, just tears. And I walked into the dispensary and I looked around, And I walked out and I was like, my friend that was with me goes, "What are you looking for?" And I go, "I'm looking for a bus for like senior citizens," because everyone in the dispensary was like 85 years old. They were all like, it's like all getting their medication. And I was sitting there I was thinking at that time, because it was like several years, of my grandmother, thinking about how much my grandmother would benefit from getting access to that kind of medication.
And I think that way too, but my people in my family are terrified of it. They're terrified. They're still living under that reefer madness hell, and they've passed that on to their children. And they think that it's just evil.
I come from a really conservative family, but that's not my experience with my family. They're open-minded. Yeah,
I'm saying it's my family.
Yeah, that's my point. But I think that's what I mean. I think it's like kind of 50-50 in that conservative space. Like, and I think there are conservative people who have other things that scare them more. I'll just say that.
Well, okay. And I'd like to qualify, just in case they're watching, that my parents themselves, my aunt and my mother, are fine with it. It's my very religious part of my family, and they're afraid of it. Sure. And my cousin has never gotten high.
I'm sure I have people like that in my family too, but I just expressed myself right here. Like after the flood, I came out publicly as a cannabis user. I put a post on Facebook and just said, "This is my life. This is what I experience. I have, medical problems. I have reasons, and I don't want to hide this anymore." It was no different than coming out as bisexual. That's literally how I felt when I did it. I literally felt like I had lived with this my whole entire life.
Right.
And I just couldn't do it anymore. I fuck it if it was illegal. Fuck it. I just couldn't do it anymore. I just had to say, this is who I am, and please don't hate me for it. Like, and if you do, go away. Just go away. I can't deal with you if you hate me for this.
Yeah.
And
it may not be hate. It just may be judgment.
I was blessed by the overwhelming amount of support that came. I mean, people that honestly, I felt like, okay, I judged you because you're sitting here supporting me, and I thought otherwise. So I had to really own that, and that just says a lot too about the community. Like, I have a really diverse community of friends and family, and just, people that I've connected to over Facebook that cross all spectrums of life. And I have found the support around this issue to be extremely broad. So it matters.
Agreed.
It matters.
Well, one thing that in recent times we've seen the struggles to have law enforcement not be treating people of color the way they were used to treating them. Yeah. And one thing that I saw growing up in West Texas, John and I came from the same little town in West Texas, is
so funny.
Kids started using marijuana and they were getting busted, but the African American and Latino people that were busted were treated a whole different way. They were beaten. They got serious prison sentences. And the white kids, they got a slap on the wrist, and they were told to be nice and don't do that anymore. And they might have had to spend a week or so in jail. And it's still that way. The search of people when they're stopped by the cops in Travis County, they've shown those stops are generally a search when it's a person of color. If it's a white person, well, they may or may not search them. They have to be really obvious in order for the cops to search the white folks. So it's just we need to get rid of that whole thing. That's one less reason for people to discriminate against people of color.
Absolutely. Well, and when we talk about that, it's like in Texas, we talk about legalization, but you look at places that have actually gone back and like retroactively, either, like erased their records and removed those offenses. Like Illinois did that retroactively for all cannabis offenders. They completely cleaned their records if they had ever done prison time, and they released anybody in prison that was in prison for a cannabis only offense. And
as well they should.
as well they should. And then, it's like, I know nobody, really wants to talk about reparations ever, but let's just talk about reparations with cannabis. Like all those people of color that got arrested and thrown in jail and had their lives entirely ruined for, a joint or two, while white kids got sent to treatment and, let go. I mean, fundamentally, like that's, we see all these cannabis companies that are starting up, and this is a big issue in the cannabis industry. It's still primarily a white-run industry. When, honestly, we should be making room and creating, that opportunity, or allowing that opportunity, or whatever. I don't want to be in charge of somebody's opportunity. Like it should be there for people of color. I mean, we should recognize the fact that their communities have been so damaged, and if we're just going to have a big cannabis celebration, well, we have to take a step back and recognize that there's some work to be done there, like really serious work to be done. So, yeah, our laws and our systems have been a blight in this particular situation, and they're there for a reason, and they're doing their job. Like the laws are working as planned.
Well, I mean, I think actually the laws written way back when that were actually written on hemp paper may not. I mean, they didn't talk about prohibition or anything like that. I'm sure that the Native Americans were using it, and introduced it to the white people, the European culture. So yeah, I lost you there for a second. And so, I think it was never an issue until it became an easy way to throw minorities in jail, undesirables, if you will.
That is the truth.
So what do you think about Oregon decriminalizing everything?
I think that when you're talking about issues of morality, I don't think they should be laws. And I think that people are going to do what they're going to do to their bodies. I do think that there needs to be, systems in place that sort of like help communities function as communities. We need to be looking at why people, for example, need to be addicted to opiates or other types of drugs that are very damaging for them. But I don't think that we should be criminalizing those people, because that's stupid. And in places, well, I mean, it is. And then in places where it's cruel too. I mean, it's really inhumane. And, if you really look at the reasons why people use drugs and have addiction, the criminality that it comes from it, a lot of times stems from the oppressive laws that are around it. If we as a community were more supportive and like actually cared about each other, other communities in other countries that have fully legalized or decriminalized drugs have really seen mass decreases in addiction, and because they have put in programs to support that. Like the decriminalization of it gets shifted over into, therapeutic care programs that really help people either manage their addiction or work through it, and for one or the other.
I think it's a brilliant way to stop using other drugs. I mean, just having used it and stopped. I mean, I wanted to stop drinking anyway. I was just tired of it, but I just increased my marijuana usage, and I never missed it, man. I never missed it at all. I don't know about harder drugs, but it just seems to me that if you offer someone this perfectly, totally natural thing rather than a Valium to try to get off of a harder drug, I just think, why not fucking do that? Also, go ahead.
Oh, well, no, I mean, like what you're saying, it's like, hey, just what you're saying, using a drug to get off a drug doesn't really make sense. It's like they're trading out, whatever. And so again, it's ludicrous. It doesn't make sense, to do something. You're still on drugs. And legal drugs are still drugs. You're still on drugs. It's my number one goal is to not be on pharmaceuticals. I try like hell. And, right now I'm on a couple of managed pharmaceuticals that I need to be on. But I do a pretty good job of managing my health with cannabis, I mean, with that alone.
It can be done.
really, really good food, like cooking for myself and trying not to eat total crap, no hater chicken. And, like
Chick-fil-A sucks.
Yeah. I mean, just trying to just make good, mindful choices in my life. That's important too. I'm responsible for my health. Finding my own health agency has been a critical part of this path. I mean, I've had a lot of doctors help me and do amazing things. And I have had some doctors hurt me very, very badly. And, understanding my health and my body and my needs and being able to be responsible for that. It's my responsibility to work with my doctors to be as healthy as I can. They can't just fix me. But cannabis for me is a part of that journey. I can't be as healthy as I can without it. So that's how I look at it.
Yeah.
Doctors are not helping their patients when it comes to painkillers, to the opiates. I experienced that with my wife's medical treatment for him. They were giving her big jars of Vicodin. She could have gotten her a wheelbarrow full. They just loved it because they were getting kickbacks. All these doctors that were prescribing, is like, if you're a world-class prescriber of opiates, then you can probably go out and buy an extra Lamborghini or
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And they all had the free samples, right?
Their patients.
That thing I flashed on
they
the
all-
screen a minute ago was the webpage for the Society for Participatory Medicine. This conversation made me think about it. I was one of the founders of that society, and it's for putting the patient kind of in the driving seat of their own care, and
That's awesome.
doctors.
That's awesome.
Cooperating doctors, doctors who believe in participatory medicine will do that. They'll consider the patient to be an important part of the care team.
Yeah,
Which
in my experience,
should totally be.
Yeah, it's like having been a literal patient since birth. I don't understand doctors that don't want my input, and I don't work with them anymore. I won't work with a doc. I mean, it's something as simple as, hey, don't use this vein, use this vein. Like just a simple, like, I know what's going to work better because it's been done 175 times in the last 3 years. It's just finding, I just look for people that sort of respect that relationship.
And
Well,
it's not
good doctors understand that everybody is really different, and nobody understands your body better than you do. And it's really essential for them to get your informed input, and if you can't give informed input, it's a good thing for them to help you become more informed.
That's right.
Yeah, or they can just treat you without telling you.
Good politicians understand that too. They understand that good doctors know how to do good medicine with good patients, and they actually pass good laws. And we need that to happen in the state of Texas. That is like a serious, serious thing.
Local all the way up, from the little bitty elections all the way to the national elections. You got to vote every time and demand that your issue is on the ballot.
And get involved, call Lion Ted and, call KPAX and, all of our great, awesome leaders who are not here for us ever.
Brian Cornyn.
Bother them. Let them know, because it does bother them.
I like it.
They need to hear from us.
Just as and just before we take off, I just want everyone to know, because I think Stephanie and I just realized this a few seconds ago, that John and Scoop are from the same town. And Stephanie and I grew up together in the same town.
That's really the truth. I thought that was funny.
It is. It's really, really funny. Wow. Well, thanks for being on with us. What else would you like? Oh, you know what? I was going to ask, I was telling everybody, this is one of your creations. You have a website where you sell all kinds of really cool stuff. And you also have blogs and stuff on there. Can you tell us what it's about?
Sure. My website is Screamish Joy. It's Scream, ISH, Joy, ScreamishJoy.com. And, you know, it's really kind of where I channel a lot of my energy with nature,
Nice.
art, and words, as my website says right there. I really have a deep connection with nature. I also do tarot card reading, and I'm a creative strategist. So I work with people to help them be more creative and help them express themselves more freely. So yeah, and then I sell designs and fun stuff, like just things that I like to do. I try to make my website a place for, you know, just, it really expresses who I am, like at my core and every level. And, you know, I say on my blog, be you offended, or I can't remember to say, like, whether you're offended or whether you like this, you know, thank you for reading it. I really don't care. Okay, I hope I don't offend you. I really want to make you think. So yeah, that's me.
Well, thanks for coming on. That was so fun.
Thanks. We enjoyed
y'all.
having
Y'all
you.
are
You
amazing.
gave me hope that there's another sane person in, well, semi-sane in my case, in Bastrop County. So it's good to have you around the neighborhood.
Yeah, thank you too, neighbor. I'm excited.
Okay,
Thanks,
thanks
y'all.
everybody.
Bye.
Thanks,
Off we
y'all.
go.
This is great.